Are you tired of spending too much money at restaurants because you don't know how to cook, because your knives are terrible and you don't know whether you should buy a thick or thin chef's knife to replace it? Well, we're going to be addressing some of those problems today. Some of that's just personal stuff, but we are going to be talking about the benefits of a thick chef's knife versus a thin chef's knife. We're going to be doing this profile right here. This is a Western chef's knife that I designed. It's something we're going to be producing for the Stelter Manufacturing Company. And in order to do that, the first thing that I did was draw it up on Fusion 360, just tracing out this profile. Then we went over to my friend Taylor, Square One Fabrication. He's a local guy here in Belgrade, Montana. He buzzed them out of a sheet of 52-100, and then we got him back to the shop to get going. All right, now that we've got these guys cut out, they're now ready to be hardened. I like to harden my knives at full thickness because everything stays a lot straighter that way. There's nothing quite so frustrating as making a knife, profiling it out, grinding in some bevels, heat treating it, and then your edge looks like this, and your knife does that. It's no good. So, if you heat treat at full thickness, it's a lot easier to keep things straight, and if things do warp, it's really easy to straighten them back out either with a torch or with a carbide ball peen hammer. So we're gonna bring these fellers up to 1500 degrees, let them austinize for 15 minutes in the kiln, and then quench them in some Parks 50 quenching oil.
Hold up, I'm gonna interrupt you right there for a second. My name's Matt and I am the co-founder of Stelter Manufacturing, and today's video is sponsored by us here at Stelter Manufacturing. If you're a fan of the channel and you wanna support us, consider heading on over to steltermanufacturing.com and checking out our smash trays. This is an 8-pound ashtray that is just super cool, and we also have two variations of the monolith bottle opener. We have our traditional square monolith bottle opener and the brand new hex bottle opener. We also have a variety of colors of hats available, and even a 4-pack for those of you who are true fans. To all of you legends who did not skip through this ad, thanks for hanging around. Head on over to steltermanufacturing.com to check out all of these cool products and sign up for our email list to learn about all of our drops that are upcoming. We got some pretty cool stuff coming down the pipeline, and you're gonna wanna know about it. Back to you, Will.
You guys wanna see a magic trick? So we've got both of these knives. They're at 167 thousandths of an inch, which is about 4 millimeters, a little over. What we're gonna do is we're going to grind one of them down to about 1/8 of an inch. Would have been ideal to start with that size stock, but I didn't have any, so we're gonna do it the hard way. First thing I'm gonna do is lay it down on the surface plate, trace my 1/8 inch line around the outside, and then I'm gonna go and remove a bunch of material on the belt grinder before taking it to the surface grinder, because the surface grinder is super duper slow. And the reason why we're doing, oh, we got a little wobble going. All right, we're gonna scribe all the way around. So now we have something to shoot for. We're not gonna get all the way there on the belt grinder. We're just gonna get most of the way there. The reason why I wanna have two different thicknesses is so that we can play around with the grinds. One grind on the thicker one grind on the thinner one, and we'll be able to test and feel and see how we like both of them. This thing warped pretty aggressively. What happens is, as you remove decarb from one side, the internal stresses that took place during heat treat or during the steel manufacturing process kind of come to light and can pull the knife in one direction or another. So the tip is kind of kicking off this way right now. So what we're going to do is hit it with a carbide hammer about right in here, which is where the bend really starts to take place. And that'll get it flattened down so that when we throw it on the surface grinder, we'll have to remove less material than if we just left it as is. We're going to remove material from this side first and then from the other side until we get down to 125 thou. Wow, that bananaed it so bad. Well, we got it flat. The surface finish is absolutely atrocious. I don't know if that wheel is tightened down all the way. It's definitely bouncing hardcore. That doesn't really matter. I did also take it a little thinner than I wanted. It's at about 115 thou, so it's 10 thou thinner than what I was shooting for, but that's what happens when you don't check. Or do any math or write anything down. What I'm going to do now is clean up my edge and my spine on both knives so I can scribe a couple of center lines, and then I'm going to get to grinding. I'll tell you guys the plan for the grind when we get there. We're basically going to do the same grind on both knives, but it's going to act differently on the two because of the different thicknesses. So the first thing I'm going to do is grind a 1-inch wide bevel down both sides of each knife. All right, let's get these bevels established and then we'll move on to the next step. So next step is I'm going to grind in a taper. So I'm going to start right here and pull it back. That means that line will kind of come down here and then kind of flatten off a little bit. Now the reason for that is that if I were to just leave this as a flat grind, it's not going to perform well. A flat grind is about the worst grind that you can have on a chef's knife. As long as it's thin, it will still cut okay, but it won't release food well and it won't be a dynamic cutting experience. We'll pull that grind down, and then from there, I'm actually going to round out the back. So I'm going to leave it flat at the edge while having some roundness to the actual back edge of the knife. That is a really high performance grind. You can take that edge down nice and thin, and so you have less material right behind the edge, but it'll have that kind of break behind it, and that means that you're not getting full contact on the blade as you cut. You have a really thin edge, you still have a lot of support, it still feels nice while you cut, and it's also pretty repeatable. So we're gonna go ahead and give that a shot once we get these scribe lines cut in. Over here. So we've got our tapers ground in. I forgot to say it earlier, I then pulled my grind back so it's still that kind of inch high grind towards the tip again. And that means that the bevel basically starts like this and then it kind of rolls, you do like this. And so it's kind of a more dynamic grind. A little harder to do, slicing tomatoes or doing something like that. It's gonna perform differently here than it will down here. This is more of a wedge, this is thinner. It's very slight. My kind of general rule of thumb for knowing if something's gonna cut well is when it's about 5/8 of an inch back, so I judge about an 1/8 inch behind that little dimple right there. If it's 65 thou all the way back there, I know that that's gonna cut pretty good. And you can see that it's 65 thou, way deeper there than it is right there. It's been a long time since I did a chef's knife this thin, so I don't know how the food release is gonna feel on something like this, but now this one, it's time to kind of round it over, start kind of blending that line a little bit. This guy, we're at 65 thou, about a centimeter back, about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch back. Up here, it's a lot higher. So we are gonna thin this grind out a touch more. I want it to be about that high back here. I'll take a little off of right here, and then we'll just thin that grind out as we kind of roll over and round out this area right here. And that's a very, very tricky process. We're dealing with some very slight angles. Starts by cutting a facet along the kind of grind line, and then a little bit along the spine, and then just very carefully rounding it out. All right, we've got them both ground up. They're looking good. We've got the thick fella over here and the thin guy here. Isaiah's guess is that this was 10 ounces and this one was 6.8. I think this one's 8 ounces and I think this one's 5. No, 8 or 9 ounces and 4.5. All right, thick guy, 6.8. We're gonna be way off. So this one's gonna be like 4, 5. Okay, so only a 2 ounce difference. That's less than I thought, but it feels very significant. There are definitely ways to lighten these up a little bit. I personally, having gotten to try a lot of different knives in the last couple of years, have been moving more towards doing thicker knives. They just kind of fall through food a little easier. That's interesting that it's that small of a weight difference, only about, I guess it's 50%, right?
It really feels like a huge difference.
It feels very, very, very different. But we're gonna have to wait until next episode to get these guys finished up. Hopefully, for those of you that are knife makers watching this, the way that I grind knives, and hopefully that process made sense. It's a fairly repeatable process, having a couple of measuring points. That 16th inch, about a 1/2 to 5/8 inch up the edge, is really where you start to get good cutting performance, in my opinion. That's gonna be it for this. We're gonna get these guys wrapped up, put some scales on them, round out the spines, get them sharpened, and then tested in the next episode. So I hope you guys stick around. Hope you enjoy. Make sure to check out the website, Stelter MFG. There's a couple of goodies up there right now. Hats, bottle opener to ashtrays, all sorts of fun stuff like that. Thank you so much to our patrons for supporting us. With that, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.